another week of What a Week, where we bring you all the stories, all the happenings, everything that everyone's been talking about for the last week. I'm Terry Martin, and I'm not a lion. I'm here with Mr. C and Tony Crossbody. Welcome.
Big up, everybody. Big up, big up.
Good evening on this lovely day.
It is a lovely day. That's where we're going to start. The weather is perfecto. Honestly, I think it just puts everyone's mood up. And how about that? We're going to get 27 degrees this week.
Woo! Now, I just came back from the park, and the park is full of people, full of families, sunbathing, not a policeman in sight. If I didn't know any better, I thought that I would think that the lockdown was over.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the same in my area. It's just absolutely wonderful. People are out there in their droves. I'm glad to see the guys are out there in their t-shirts, the ladies in their maxi dresses.
Oh, have you got a thing for a maxi dress then, Mr. C?
Listen, there's something about, listen, you know how it feels for you as a woman, Terry, when you're wearing one. We know how it feels as a man just watching the film. Oh gosh, I live for days like this.
What about this weather and COVID-19? Do you think there's any connection? You know, they said that it can't really last in higher temperatures. Do you think this will help our numbers drop if the weather just keeps getting hotter and hotter?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I really don't know. I mean, you know, we know in the Caribbean and Africa, COVID-19 is not seeing the numbers as in the colder climates. But you know, we hope so. I think the way people are out now, I think it's going to be very hard for the government to roll it back into a lockdown like we had it before. I think people are going to get. I mean, I think we're going to touch on this later on, but you know, people have already started protesting about it. So I'd be surprised if the government go back to any sort of lockdown situation as we've known it.
Oh, really? So there's no return on a full lockdown, just this semi one that we've got now.
I think the tide of the public, I think the public mood is such that what they want to see is a continuous sort of releasing of the lockdown and not to go back to what it was before.
Yeah. But surely it's more about what's more healthy and safe for us rather than what we feel like because it's sunny outside. So let's talk about that. We spoke about the Hyde Park. There's going to be a gathering. People coming together to say, you know, it's our human rights to be allowed out and to do whatever we want to do. We have a couple clips from that day. So let's watch a clip or two and then let's get talking about what happened that day.
Hands off me. Stay back. You're being arrested. Stop resisting. You're on my knees. Stop resisting.
I think the main point that everybody wanted to talk about after watching that video is why are the police not social distancing? That's a very big boo-boo, or it's a very big giveaway. I mean, not giveaway, but what is going on there? Why are they not social distancing, but everybody else should?
Listen, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You know, it's like, number one, there was not one policeman or woman wearing a mask. So this thing was as rampant as you'd think that somewhere as Hyde Park, where so many people have come from so many different areas to come together, just by the numbers alone, somebody there should have COVID-19. So it was that much of a pandemic, as opposed to what we're calling now a plandemic, that, you know, the police should be wearing masks. And again, look how many of them they were on that one guy. You know, there was no social distancing going on there at all.
At all. I mean, I'm sure in certain situations it's hard to implement social distancing if you're going to be arresting somebody, but was it necessary for 10 of them to be breathing all in the man's face like that?
I'm sure I saw one of the cops stamping on his knee. I think that's what caused the guy the pain from the looks of it. I think they tried to cover up that arrest by saying stop resisting, but I think I saw one of them stamping on his knee and that what's caused him to scream out. But yeah, Mrs. right. I mean, we've been seeing meat wagons rolling about with policemen. There's been no social distancing. Those vans have been packed up with police. I mean, you start to ask, who is this for? Who is this social distance and behavioural change for? When the authorities themselves are not observing it, but politicians are going to visit their parents willy-nilly, going off to their holiday homes and all this sort of stuff. But we're told we have to carry a ruler around with us so we can measure how far people are. You know, I mean, questions have to be asked.
Yeah,
I just pick up on a point what you said there, Tony, as regards to the police brutalising that young man. You know, the police, you saw the police literally jump down on him with the full force of his knees into the guy's hips. And you correctly spotted there, Tony, when he was bawling out in pain, they were saying to him, stop resisting. It was just like, hold on, he's not resisting, he's bawling out in pain. It kind of it reminded me of when our parents used to give us beatings back in the day and said, you want me to give you something to cry for? Well, I'm like, excuse me.
Yes.
It's one of them kind of moments.
Or you get licked and then they're told you, don't cry. Don't cry. Yeah. It's a contradiction, a very big contradiction. All of it is. And, you know, there was other incidents in the park that day as well. What do we feel about, it seems like there is there's a class social distancing going on, I believe, because I mean, they're telling us to send our kids back to school, maybe from the 1st of June, certain years are going to go back to school, but a lot of people are fighting that when Eton and all them big private schools go back to school, which they don't plan to do until September, that's when we'll send our kids back. Why should we be the guinea pigs? That's a very big question that's been going on this week.
Yeah, it's like we'll take the vaccine when Bill Gates' kids take the vaccine.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you know, we'll go to war when the politicians send their kids to war. I mean, it's the same old story, isn't it? I mean, you know, the serfs, or the poor, the working class, are sent out there to basically test the waters, get killed off, and so, you know, when the higher ups realise what the situation is, then they make a decision. And you're absolutely right. I think there is a lot of class distinction, and dare I add it, and I will come on to this a bit more later on, some issues to do with race as well.
Mr. C?
Spot on. I mean, it's almost like they've said to themselves, well, hold on, you know, like, well, these ethnic chaps, you know, they're most likely to get it. So if we send all of them back, send all of, you know, the brownies back to school, and if they get it, then we know, you know, something's still wrong. But if they don't get it, we know it's safe to send our children back to school. It's almost like they're using us for real guinea pigs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And please, everyone, if you get involved in the conversation, drop a comment below. Let us know what you think about this, what you think about the gathering, what you think about please not social distancing, and what you think about maybe the social distancing between classes, and like working class and the higher class. Are they using us as guinea pigs? Let us know what your thoughts and feelings are in the comments, please. But in saying that, off the back of what you guys have said, using the ethnics to do so, in the Caribbean, it said that the numbers are so low. We are not being affected as other races are, other places are. So let's watch this video clip, which states about the fact that the Caribbean, especially, we're looking at the Caribbean at the minute, the numbers are really low. So let's watch this video.
Reporting from Sydney. Now, in the last few weeks, we've seen all too clearly that while COVID-19 can infect anyone, poverty can also increase the risk of catching it. So you might think that the developing nations of the Caribbean are more vulnerable to the disease than any other, than richer parts of the world. But in fact, the death toll there has been very small compared to Europe, Asia and North America. There have been just 84 fatalities across 20 nations. Our Cuba correspondent, Will Grant, reports.
The Cuban government hasn't changed its message from the start. Don't leave home unless it's strictly necessary, says this doctor in a village outside Havana, and lists the symptoms of coronavirus one more time. They also do shoe leather epidemiology, two-person teams of medics going door to door with a clipboard. The survey helps the authorities map the state of health of the town and anyone showing symptoms of COVID-19 is closely monitored. It's largely worked. Cuba had no coronavirus fatalities on one day last week. And it's been a similar success story across the Caribbean. Most island nations locked.
So in saying that, maybe more for them if they think they're going to take out the people who are working or the poorer people of this world, because it seems that their numbers are so much lower. Why is that? What's everyone's thinking on how comes the numbers are so low in these areas?
I think what you'll find in these working class areas, and especially across the world, that they have one thing which is how can I put it? It's always been there to save us. It's called common sense. It's like I was because I know a little bit of Cuban myself. What that man was actually saying to them is saying, "Hey, padres, don't come out of your house. If you come out of your house, we send El Chapo for you." And that's what they're talking about, shoe leather. They're talking about a good old beat in the back of your head, kind of your yard.
Don't be stupid. One of them.
Yeah. But I think what that shows is that if the Caribbean have got such low numbers, then this thing cannot be genetically affecting people of color. So it's got to be as regards to class in this country. It's got to be regards to class and how Black people are treated in this country. It's not about our genetics, because in our host countries, we're not as affected as we are when we come out of them.
Yeah. Could it be to do with the weather as well, Tony? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that. I mean, vitamin D and the part that it plays with regard to the immune system. I'd like to see some statistics which compare the death rates of warmer climates to colder climates to see if there is a correlation. But that's probably got something to do with it, yes.
Yeah. I do know we had a video on the statistics in Africa. I wonder if we can play that video now about the statistics in Africa, their numbers also being so low. And maybe it's a connection between how many tests they do and, their deaths. Putting out the amount of tests that they do means that they can really narrow down who's got it and isolate them quickly before it spreads. So that could be another factor. I don't think we have that video. If we do, please cut it in, producer. But
the president of Tanzania in Africa, what he did is to expose what's going on with coronavirus. Now he's a doctor, my understanding, he's a doctor. He sent to his country's, Tanzania's, kind of their CDC, he sent 3 samples. And he gave them human names. All 3 samples came back positive for coronavirus. The samples were a goat, a papaya, and
car oil.
Was it
what?
No,
that's what I read from the subtitle. So this is
car oil. What do you mean? He gave samples of those, and they came back all coroned up.
Quail. No, it was a quail.
Quail.
I read it was a quail, a goat, and a papaya. It sounds like a joke. It sounds like a joke. A papaya.
Went into a bar.
And a quail walk into a COVID testing center. Okay? All 3 came back positive for coronavirus.
so the Tanzania president has fooled the WHO, sent them these different samples of things that are nothing to do with coronavirus, and they've all come back positive. Now, this is where the conspiracy starts, isn't it, guys? I mean, this is where people say it's fake. People are saying that even though there's so many deaths, are these deaths really from COVID? What can we make of this?
It does undermine the argument, doesn't it? I mean, if they could be tricked into getting those types of results, and we have come to know that some of these cases of COVID have been over-reported. People have been knocked down and killed or shot with a gun, but yet on their death certificate it tells us that they died of COVID. I mean, it weakens the government's argument, and it makes people very suspicious as to what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. C, what you going to say?
Again, I think what we have to really put into context here as well is that the fact that the president, he's not just a doctor, he's actually got a diploma in chemistry, majoring in chemistry. He's got a bachelor's degree in science.
Wow.
And so at the end of the day, this is not somebody who doesn't understand. I mean, when you compare him to somebody like Bill Gates, he's more qualified to talk about this than Bill Gates or than Donald Trump or what's name, the one with the messy ear stub, Boris Johnson. So the fact that what he proved there is that these testing kits are not accurate at all.
Yeah.
You know, if you test papaya, a goat, and engine oil come back as positive for COVID-19, you know something's wrong. So again, it just highlights that these people either don't know what they're doing or it's total fabrication. It's total fabrication.
And it's all about making money, isn't it?
Well,
Tony, was you going to say something?
No, I was just what struck me was the fact that news like that doesn't appear on mainstream news. That looks like some, with all due respect, backstreet conspiracy channel that they, you know, you're not going to see, and I believe that news is true. But what I'm saying is that you're not going to see that broadcast to the masses. What the masses are going to get, they're going to get BBC, Sky News, and all these other people who are basically dishing out the propaganda. And the damage has been done. I mean, you see it in the streets where people they don't know whether to wear masks, not wear masks, social distance, don't social distance. I mean, you know, the propaganda has messed up people's minds, and this sort of information, as important as it is, will never get out to them. So we see it, and a few viewers who are watching today might see it and say, yep, that makes sense. But nobody else is going to see it. And that's for good reason, because that's not the narrative that needs to be out there.
Yeah, that's not the narrative. That's not their agenda. Yeah, Mr. C.
Yeah, I was going to say, as well as regards to propaganda and fake news, I just wanted to say that we've had a message from Supreme TV Online questioning the validity of my beard. It's real. It's real.
I saw that come through.
Spreading fake news. But as you're saying, Tony, correctly, is that, you know, there is an agenda and they don't want certain truths to be told. And it's a shame, man. It's just like, you know, you can't trust the news and the media anymore. It's just not, it's just not correct the way how they're doing things. And you can see that there's definitely a bias towards just one vein of stories.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that name again, Mr. C, so correctly. Mr. Bill Gates seems to be popping up everywhere now. A man, you know, who has no medical qualifications, talking about how the world needs to be vaccinated so that we can all get back to normal again. And here we have a president who's qualified, you know, does all these tests, whatever, proves it's fake. Nobody hears about it, but every night on the news, you know, if it's not Bill Gates, it's him and his wife, their foundation, and what they intend to do. And I read somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, that he's set to make 200 billion out of the vaccinations if they actually come through. So, you know where all this is going. I mean, I think people now need to start using their critical thinking ability to see, look, so you have a situation where the authorities are not social distancing, politicians are doing what they like, the testing is bogus, the numbers are inflated, they create all these big hospitals that are never being used, and you still have to stay inside.
I think you summed it up so well there.
And not forgetting some of these new draconian laws, what they're trying to push through while everybody is self-isolating, including Parliament as well. So it's got to keep our eye out, people. Got to keep our eye out what's going on, man.
We do. It's all very tiring, though, I must say. Very tiring. Keep ahead and try to stay on top of it as much as you can, especially for yourself and for your loved ones, when this is all about business. I mean, let's get into TFL. We are now being punished, as far as I'm concerned, for following the guidelines, staying in our house, not traveling, not going anywhere. Oops, TFL have now got themselves into a lot of debt, and now they're recouping it back from us, aren't they? I mean, the congestion charge has gone up to £15 a day. And it's even been extended from what time to what time now? I think it's from 6 till 10 or something like that. Right?
7 a.m. till 10, 7 days a week, 15 pounds.
And also, even if you live in that area, do you know there's no discount for you anymore? Before there was like a 90% discount. Now there's no discount. So even if you live in that congestion zone, you have to pay the same £15. Ridiculous. I think punished.
That is criminal. Absolutely criminal, because within that area, even though it's quite affluent, there are some social housing projects there. I shouldn't say projects, some social housing there. And for those people, they're not going to be able to afford £15 every day for this unforeseeable future as regards to them using their car. It's just it's criminal. We're living in the days of Robin Hood.
Yeah, because even now under 18s can no longer travel for free, and they lose their discounts, and over 16 no longer get free travel during rush hour. Like, what is going on? There's a big punishment here, and I think a lot of people are overlooking the fact that all of these things that are coming out now, the furloughs and everything, all these payouts, they're going to come back to sting us and bite us for a very long time, because they said when everything calms down, it will all go back to normal. But I've heard them say that about certain areas and congestion and charges and stuff they've said before, that they will relax when some such and such is over, and they never do relax them. So do you think they're really going to bring the prices back down, Tony? Do you think that's
never? I mean, 9/11 proved it. When 9/11 took place and all these new security measures came in, 20 years later, those security measures are still there. They never roll them back. It doesn't matter which government comes in. This is here to stay. This is what's going to be the new normal for us. And I read somewhere how TfL were whining and complaining about, well, they're losing a lot of money because, no, people aren't traveling as before, and, they're not obviously charging. Some bus routes are not charging for charging passengers. So they're trying to claw the money back somehow. But obviously what you're seeing now is the beginning of the payback. And that payback, when things go back to whatever normal is going to be, they're going to claw every single penny back plus more. And those of us who used to enjoy a nice disposable income that we could go away for our 2 holidays a year or our weekenders, we're going to find we're going to be struggling that little bit more now.
I mean, again, as well, for me, it kind of almost sets a law now for local councils now to say, well, that's a good idea. We do residence parking between Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Now let's do it up until 10 o'clock. Let's do it every single day. Let's increase the money for parking. Where will it end? Where will it end?
This is it. And then they've now upped the amount of trains that are running certain routes as well, so that more people can get on the train again. And there's still no law to say that people, even on the train, should have to wear a mask, because social distancing cannot happen on a train. We've seen how packed the tube gets. How can people social distance there? It's impossible. So why is there no law to say when you're on public transport, you should definitely wear a mask, just to help, reduce the spread of this virus? I just think it's ridiculous. And poor Sadiq Khan, I think he's got the short straw on all of this, because it's had to happen because they need the money. And I feel like the government have actually now put some of their bodies on the TfL body governing board, isn't it? They've now infiltrated. So now forever, they're going to have say and take parts of TfL, and it's all going to come back on Sadiq, isn't it? I've seen that he's been getting cursed out already for these changes, which he's had not much say over now. The government are involved in TfL.
Well, number one, if the government had not bought all of those testing kits, which were absolutely rubbish, bought faulty equipment and put that money into TfL in the first place, we probably wouldn't be in this mess.
I just don't understand how we could now be being we're basically being punished for listening to the rules, which was not to go anywhere, not to use TfL. So how does this
it's like your back in the day when your mum used to get paid, those old pay packets, they used to put money, your mum put it in her bag on the way home. Now she loses it. And obviously that makes her so mad that you get beaten. Nothing to do with you. Right? You're there, you come home, your mum said you wore in the plants, everything like that, next minute belt, bam, 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 what's happened? Right? I lost it. You made me lose my money.
Yeah.
And really this is what's happening here, whereby, as always, it's always the working classes that are getting beaten. I think that we're slowly starting to see what the motivation is. We're starting to see changes. We're starting to see shops turn around and say, well, you know what, don't use cash anymore because, people can catch COVID using paper money. Let's start using your card if your purchases are under £50. You're slowly starting to see, real change coming to, and they do it incrementally so you get used to it. They got to let you get used to it. They just can't rush it in, right? They give you a reason. The reason is the COVID. You're going to catch the COVID, so stand 2 meters apart. We don't want money no more because you can catch the COVID. Give us pay by card. And slowly and surely, we're all going to be indoctrinating into this new system. That's already here, really. We're just at the very early stages of it.
Yeah, there's more to come. Theo also said we're going to pay big time. That's his comment, and I think we are. We're going to pay, and we're starting to pay already, aren't we?
Definitely. And you know what? One of the things you highlighted something which is really important there as well, Terry, is that the fact that on the tube or on the underground or public transport, there is no social distancing. So what they're saying is that it's all right for you to travel with absolute strangers and people who you don't know, but you're only allowed to see one person that you know. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. It's honestly, it's mind blowing for me sometimes. My brain hurts.
There's something new coming out soon. I'm not sure if the government have already mentioned it, but I read about it called a bubble. That's a new word we're going to start getting used to. And a bubble is you can go to the park and meet a family member who doesn't live in your house and sit with them as long as you observe social distancing. So before it was, if you live in a house with someone, then you can be with them, right? But you can actually meet another family member and meet them at the park, and that is known as a bubble. And so, these are the laws being relaxed a little bit. But again, these new terminologies, social distancing, bubbles, and so forth, it's something we're going to start getting used to.
Yeah, that's correct. My children's school are going, or they've put facilities together to have children back on the 1st of June. And they are saying, it's going to be a bubble class now. So each child is going to sit in their bubble. They eat in their bubble. They play in their bubble. They've even stated to us that if a child is crying or upset, they will not be soothed by the teacher. The teacher will not be able to go over to them because of social distancing. Everyone is to stay in their bubble. The word bubble for me is going to be very annoying from now on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how distressing for a child who's used to interacting as children do. And now you've got square boxes painted into the playground that says, well, you can stand here and you stand over there. We can't touch, we can't play ball, we can't do anything. We've got to play in our own little space. I mean, that's traumatizing for a child. What kind of adult is that going to be?
Yeah, they're talking about putting kindergarten, reception year ones back into school and expecting them to stay in their bubble. And if they get upset, no one's going to come and soothe you or look after you because everyone has to. So for me, it's absolutely ridiculous. My children are not going back to school. That's the decision I've made. Until definitely, I'm even sticking to when Eton and all them big schools go back, when Parliament starts sitting side by side and rubbing shoulders again and all them sort of things, that's when I'll feel a bit more free to send back my children to school. But
Terry,
we stand strong. Honestly, each to their own. I'm not judging anybody because I'm in a mum's group, and all the mums are in this group, and we've all got different opinions on who's sending their children back and who's not. And I don't judge anybody for their choice, but I do know that my children are not going back to that bubble anytime soon. No,
go on, Terry. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, no way. That's it for me.
Because I was saying that I'm like you. I wouldn't judge them either. I just see two sets of mothers: the good ones like you, and the bad ones, them who cannot manage their little bad breed picnic, and they need to get them out the house. They need to, because the little jankros, they might mash up the whole house, and they have no control over the little.
Honestly, it's hard for those who need to go back to work as well and things like that. I know everyone's situation is very different. But talking about work and going back to the underground, there was that very sad case of the lady who lost her life after being spat on by somebody who who or did have COVID or gave it to her and she died, what was it? I think it was 11 days later or so. She had a little girl also who was only 11 years old. What do we think about that? Because how do we police these things?
You can't. You know, you just have, there are certain people in society and in this society who will just do the unthinkable. It's just in their nature. You tell them not to do it or observe these, you know, these instructions or these restrictions, and they will purposefully look to break them. Now, I don't know. I've not seen whether or not this spitting in the lady's face was racially motivated, or whatever. But the point is, there are always these types of individuals around, and it'll be interesting to see how that case goes, or whether they'll be charged for manslaughter, murder, or whatever. But you know, what kind of mindset knows that you're in a dangerous situation and then spit in someone's face? I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think definitely attempted murder, manslaughter at the very least, and the government needs to treat that person with the full force of the law. It's you know, the fact that somebody's lost their life just by doing their job, and the most simplest of jobs, to be honest with, which is public service. You're there to serve members of the public, and for somebody to take liberties with you like that, and for you to lose your life over, it's just, to me, you know, the full force of the law, that person needs to be met with. 100%.
But what if that person is to say, just throwing it out there, that they didn't know they had COVID? They didn't show any symptoms. They didn't know they had COVID. They just spat in the face because they were angry. It wasn't intentional. Because I guess that could also be an argument.
Yeah, but the climate teaches you what is and what isn't appropriate, right?
Yeah.
And how you should express yourself if you're upset. You know you're in a pandemic. You don't have COVID, but let me spit in your face anyway to show how upset I am. I mean, that again, that's totally ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like somebody who's going to do who pulls out a toy gun and says to somebody, "I'm going to stick you up," and that person has a heart attack and dies.
Yeah.
It's you know.
Yeah. It's the motive behind what the action, I suppose, what needs to be punished. Akuya says, or Kuas, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, so I don't think the story is true in the first place. So what do we think about that? Could this be a hoax story?
And I guess equally we could say we don't know if it's false.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can only talk about what's reported. I mean, I would imagine, in fairness to that person, that many stories in the media are not true and they're made up, right? But we can't prove them otherwise. So we have to just go with what we're told, right? We have no means of basically confirming or denying these stories. So we can only comment on what we hear.
Yeah.
I think time will tell, because allegedly somebody has been interviewed by the police as regards to the incident. So we'll just have to watch and see what happens with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think Akua has also said, why do you want to send your children back, even in September, to a system that has never treated us right anyway? Let's be honest and brave. I think you have a point there, but at the same time, life still has to go on for some people, doesn't it? Not everybody has the facilities, the money to be able to say, I'm going to stay at home with my children because I can, or I'll get a private tutor or whatsoever. Everyone's situation is very, very different. So I'm very sensitive to that when it comes to talking about the kids going back and so on and such forth. But I think the point should be made as well, just referring to that last comment, is that it's a question of economics. If you don't have the economics to teach your children at home because you're working, you know, you really don't have much choice. And this is the problem. You see, you're kind of powerless because economically you're relying upon your job to provide you with a salary. You can't afford to stay home to homeschool your kids. And let's be honest, I mean, a lot of us, you know, we're not sufficiently, when I say educated, I don't mean in the sense of schooling, but we don't know enough to teach our own children. That's part of the problem too. And the other part is that some of us use school as a nurse, as a babysitting. Some of our children, we can't cope with them. So when we send them to school, at least we can get rid of them for 8 hours, right? Until they come home and create habit. So there are many sort of reasons going. So yes, the point being about, I mean, the system is not working in your favor or whatever, but when you look at the nation as a whole,
and their lack of power, economically speaking, they don't have the ability to homeschool their children because they have to work and they depend upon the system to provide money for them to pay their bills, and they need to send their kids to school in order to do this.
Yeah. And let's be honest. There's quite a large minority of us who would have problems, deep problems, homeschooling our children. But you're sitting down there with little Junior, trying to talk to him about times tables. He's 4 and you're 27, and he knows his times tables better than you. How you gonna school little Junior? How?
Yeah. She said 4 parents coming together means you can still work full time. I'm not sure. Does anybody?
You know what? I like this lady.
Yeah, what does she mean? Tell us.
I think what she's saying is that she's talking about people coming together, and so what you'll have is you'll have a shift pattern going on amongst the parents.
Okay.
So what will happen is one parent may do 2 days, another parent may do 2, and that's a very, very good idea. That's fantastic solution.
Yeah. Right. So what we could do with that, for example, is someone could run with that idea, right? And set up a situation. People can set up situations in their own areas where they can have these types of groups, right? Yeah. The question is, again, I mean, I would guess not everybody's going to go for it, but those who can work with such a system would probably go for that. But again, we still come back to these other issues, like, are parents sufficiently qualified to homeschool their kids, as Mr. C just pointed out? That's a practicality in itself. So yes, I think that's a possible workable situation. The problem again is that we're so deeply indoctrinated to sending our kids to state school. You're gonna have a hard time persuading parents to try anything new.
Definitely.
Well,
and the safety of it as well. Let's talk about the safety of it. Can you trust other people's
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then you've got the Ofsted wanting to be involved in making sure that, or social services, that the children are safe. The place where you're schooling them is insured, and you've got all these sort of legalities. It's not straightforward. It's workable, yes, definitely workable, but you've got to go through a lot of red tape to make this work. And do people want to do that?
I think it's easier to do than not to do. I think if you get like-minded people. I mean, again, we're all used. Those of us who have worked with children, like myself, or young people or vulnerable adults. You go for a system. You go for a DBS check. It's the same kind of thing as regards to ensuring that the house is safe. And from parents to parents, I think that's your duty to check that the person who you're sending your child to. It's the same if you go to a nursery or you get a childminder. You answer the relevant questions. You check the relevant paperwork. So I think a system like this could work. I think that if one parent, their speciality is, say, for example, maths, then that parent becomes a maths tutor for those 4 children or for those 4 families. If one is very good at English, then they become the English tutor. If nobody is good at, say, geography, then the 4 of you can hire in the one geography teacher for those children. And I think having this mindset is a brilliant way forward. I think it's definitely a brilliant way forward.
Yeah, the way around that is at younger ages. I can't remember where the cutoff point is, but I think it's from primary school ages. It's only compulsory for them to be doing maths and English. Actually, all the other lessons are not compulsory. And secondary school, I think it's maths, English, and science. So that's a way around that. You could focus on the core subjects only, and maybe put the other ones in as and when it suits, or you can even adapt it, couldn't you? Instead of teaching history about, I don't know, other places, you can talk about ancient Egypt and Black kings and queens, and you can really adapt it that way if you can have more control over it. That's something exciting.
And traditional family values of an African Caribbean heritage. I think these things are important. Nutrition is important. Financial literacy is important. These are the things that we really should be teaching our children. How to be self-sufficient, how to set up their own businesses, etc., etc., etc. And I think if we start doing this kind of thing, it will only better us all in the long run within our community.
Yeah, thank you, Akua. You've definitely put some food for thought out there, and maybe roll with that idea and come back to us. Let us know how it's running, and you never know, you might inspire others to start doing that in their area, and that's how things spiral, and that's how business starts, isn't it? Talking about kids and having kids, Usain Bolt, we're going over to sports now, but we'll start. Bolt had his baby. Mr. C, how are you?
Listen.
Bolt is here. That's what the headline said. Man. They've had a daughter.
Yeah,
do we know her
daughter? It's going to be Lightning. Her name's going to be Lightning.
Lightning Bolt. So original.
Yeah. Got nothing to do with Vibes Cartel and that kind of lightning. This is proper lightning. Like Grease lightning.
I would imagine that birth was pretty quick too, and 9.5 seconds or something like that. But congratulations to the man. You know, he's done everything in his sport that he wanted to accomplish, and now young enough to sort of start a family and move into a new phase of his life. So, yeah, congratulations.
But just because of the liberties of this world and the injustice, even though Bolt is retired, they still wanted to test him for gas.
No way.
Not like
I was actually caught into that for a second. You got me. We can rewind and see my face. I was like, huh? You got me. Mr.
No,
C.
Man, I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for him. And the fact that his first child is a girl as well, magical. So you know the bond between fathers and daughters is just absolutely magical. You know, we're gonna watch that growth and that love. And again, I think it's going to send out a lot of positive signals to young men on how they should be with a woman and with our ladies, man. They need more love, man. They need more love. So it's good to see that, man. It's good to see.
Congratulations to Usain Bolt once again. And staying in the sports category, Tony, I know you've seen some headlines.
Oh, yeah. A couple of stories stuck out in my mind this week. There's this former English ladies football captain. I don't know if we've got the actual snapshot for that. Yes, there she goes. Eni Aluko. So she made some comments on Twitter back end of last week about the furlough payments, and she received a hail of racist abuse, right? It was so bad, apparently, they found out the number of her parents or whatever, ringing them up and abusing them down the phone and all this sort of malarkey. And I found out, I was like, ooh. And then I read about Ian Wright, the footballer. Ian Wright now had a situation, right, where basically he was receiving racist messages through his Instagram. And again, it was getting so bad that he had to screenshot them and hand it over to police. I think they found the person who was doing this.
Yeah.
And what really struck me is, well, not just that. I mean, there's a platform called TikTok. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
You know, it's mostly inhabited by, you know, young people. But there's, again, on there's been a hail of racist propaganda, young white kids doing impressions of black people picking cotton, and all sorts of derogatory remarks against black people. And what strikes me really is the fact that, you know, the thing about a crisis, it actually brings out who you really are. And I think it does that to all of us. Like your real personality, away from, you know, being coddled by the state and, you know, your money's coming in and you're feeling good. And when everything's taken away from you, what you really are is what's really coming out. And I think Mr. C pointed this out before we started the show. There's no, you know, we're all in this together, except, my friend, racism still continues. It's not going to stop. And people are coming out and showing their true colors. And that's what really struck me about these stories. Yeah,
definitely. It's all about the character. We can all represent something. We can all put something out there on social media. It's not about our Instagram. It's about our monogram. What we put on Instagram is a representation of how we would want to be or how we want others to see us, but who your actual character is. Yes, it does show up, especially in times of tribulation, hard times. That's when your true character comes out. I agree with you totally, Tony, and that's why people with good character, I believe, they get promoted and they go far no matter what, because the character stays consistent. You can pretend to be somebody, but that can never stay consistent, and your flaws will always show, especially when times get hard. Your weaknesses, your cracks will start to show. So it's always about working on one's character. But social media can allow people to be so cruel. I can't even express how cruel social media can be sometimes.
Yeah, when you can hide behind a keyboard, you know, without fear of being exposed. I mean, everybody's a keyboard warrior, then, aren't they? They can vent their true feelings, how they feel about you. And these are people who probably go out, interact with black people every day, you know, and but have used this as an opportunity to really just show what they're really all about. So yes, that's the thing. That's what Crisis does. So we shouldn't really complain, in a sense. When we're going through this crisis as we're going through now, what we're really getting a chance to do is show who we really are. Right? We've seen, unfortunately, domestic violence jump up by, you know, what's this? I can't remember what the percentage was, but it's a big jump. So again, who are these people that are committing domestic violence? These are people who have been exposed. The crisis has exposed them for who they are. There are many people who are not committing domestic violence. So what's the difference? See, a crisis brings out the true person.
Mr. C?
No, it sure does. I think number one, social media doesn't allow these people to do anything. These people, the blame is on these people. You know, they're using social media as a platform to hide behind, which is a completely different thing. Me personally, I think that to a certain degree, I think once you're in the public eye, you have to accept a certain amount of negativity. However, when you start phoning up somebody's parents' home, you cross lines. And I think that's when it's serious, and that's when the police must do their job to make sure that these people are found, arrested, and prosecuted. If not, then there's something wrong. There is definitely something wrong. You know, you could call me a monkey, whatever you want, on Twitter, Instagram, all day long. I'm not even gonna respond to half of them. If I do, I'll respond in a jokey way. You cannot upset my apple cart from where you are.
Yeah.
But come to my house or come to my parents or to my family members, it's a different thing. To me, it's a declaration of war. So I would allow the police first step to deal with it. If they don't deal with it, then I'm sorry, I'll have to deal with it in my own sweet way. Simple as. Very, very simple.
We need to be careful that even us as a society, we don't turn against our own, because there's also a story of a girl who is an influencer, and she does a lot of YouTube videos. She had back in the day tweeted some very silly statements about black girls, and you know how if we get hit, bruises won't show up on our skin. Why do we bother to wear blusher? These tweets she put out when she was about 12 years old. Very silly, very immature. She lost her mother some time back, maybe a few years back, and the amount of black people, black Twitter they call it, that started attacking her mother, saying your mother would turn in her grave, and really going just the most horrible statements about the poor girl's dead mom. It really hurt me, and it hurts me even more when our own culture do it to ourselves. Even though she was very bad for making them statements, she did take responsibility, and she said that she's not even going to use age as an excuse to put over the fact that she put these things out. But she even said the reason she said them things is because she didn't like herself. And if she didn't like herself, it made her project. And I felt that was such a big thing for her to put a video out explaining that and not making any excuses, but apologizing. And the fact that people behind the keyboard, like you said, think that they can come out and just really, even to the point of get to the girl's mother. She said, you can curse me out all you like, but to start bringing up my dead mom and things like that is just absolutely disgusting. And I don't know how people sleep at night when they do things like that.
It is, man. It definitely is. I'm trying my best not to go off script here, but the fact that you said that kind of reminded me of an incident what happened with myself on Twitter. Like I'm a football man, and I follow Chelsea. Chelsea's my team. and another black Chelsea follower made a comment about a particular player, Willian, and that, you know, he's rubbish, he's blah blah blah, he's come back. And literally, I must have said, well, look, the guy's come back from an injury. No player who comes back from an injury, blah, blah. I said, you know, some of you Chelsea fans, you know so much about football, but you've never kicked a ball in your life.
Mm.
Yeah.
This person came back with a statement as about me doing something with my mouth with my mother. And the rage, because my mother's passed, the rage, what came into me. And then for around about 2 to 5 minutes, I was like,
just cursing out, yeah.
And then I said, he hasn't got that power over you. He hasn't got that power over you. And so I replied from a place of humor. And I can't say exactly what I said humorously, but I did say something about the fact that of his he hasn't seen his father since he last drank his father through a straw, something like that.
To put it nicely.
I've never heard nothing back from him again. But what it is that we, no matter what people say to us, we have to take control of how we feel. We really have to try and take that power. And it's difficult, but these are our challenges because they're out there.
Yes.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's very noticeable about the nation in general is that we struggle with self-control when we're provoked. If our feelings are hurt or you touch our raw nerves, we wait for an opportunity to get you, and when we get you, we take all gloves are off. There are no rules. We'll abuse anybody close to you, anybody you love, to get to you, and that is it's a real problem. When we do that to others, we can do that to each other, and we do it in relationships even, right? And so, how do you get over this sort of vindictive mentality? Because you've been wrong. Sometimes in life, actually, do you know that it's actually better to just be wronged and get away from it, as opposed to feel the need to get vengeance, you see? And because when we do, it's vengeance tied in from emotion. It's many things that we end up regretting. I mean, how many people in our community over the decades have been killed, right, for simple violations like stepping on a man's shoe or, you know, looking at someone the wrong way, you know. There is that thing within us that we need to recognize, that we need to try and rein in those feelings when we're provoked.
Yeah, we do. It's a testament to everyone's character. I think this is definitely a time where people should reflect and maybe work on their character. Everybody's got something to work on. Nobody's perfect. We've all got flaws. And I guess this is a time, in this trial and tribulation, in this pandemic, this unprecedented time, is a time where we could all sit back and reflect on ourselves and do better, so that as a community, as a people, as a generation, we can stand strong and do better in general. That's how I'd like to conclude on that bit. And I wanted to just quickly reach out to you, Tony and Mr. C, taking it elsewhere now. Have you got any recommendations for things to watch, things to read? Because I think it's always nice to share. Even last night, I found myself completing one Netflix series, and I felt lost. And I was like, oh my gosh, I messaged a couple of my friends. What do you recommend I watch on Netflix or so on? So I wanted to just quickly have a little chat. And anybody watching out there, please message us. Let us know what you've read or watched over this time that you'd recommend to others. So go ahead, Tony. Have you got any recommendations, books, TV series, documentaries, anything that you want to share with us?
I'm broke, so I can't afford Netflix, so I don't know what the shows are. I keep seeing in the groups, people are posting things in the group about watch this show, watch that show, but I'm so broke I can't afford Netflix, so I'm not watching anything. What I'm reading at the moment, and I've been on this book for so long now, but it's a book about the Haitian Revolution called The Black Jacobins, written by C.L.R. James, and it's all about the history of Haiti and the involvement of Napoleon and how they freed themselves from colonialism. So that's been sort of taking up my time. I try to do as much as I can in one read, but I end up putting the book down and forgetting about a couple of days and come back to it later. But that's been my ongoing project so far. But as far as TV is concerned, nah, I've not been watching the news, so I don't really know too much of what's going on. But as I said, I know there's a lot of good shows on Netflix because I hear everybody talking about them, but I haven't seen any.
Yeah, I think your background is a testament to who you are. You've got loads of books there.
This is somebody else's house. I don't live there.
That's just a backdrop. That's not actually.
Yeah, it's a backdrop. You can do that. You can do that. You can create a backdrop where you makes you look like you're more intelligent than you really are.
It's not even a backdrop.
I see what you're doing, Tony. I see.
Yeah. Someone else's house that I don't live in.
It's definitely somebody else's house. That's why you never see the owner, because Tony's got them tied up. He's working his way to try and find the safe in the house. He's doing. Yeah. Which
I'm tired, but I leave when the show's over.
It brings me on to two shows. First one is a one called Gangs of London, Sky Atlantic. Oh my days, absolutely phenomenal program.
I heard people talking about that one.
Yeah. I'm without giving anything away. It's probably one of the first TV series filmed in London, which gives a real view of diversity in London, first and foremost. You know, you've got equal lead parts from black, white, and other ethnicities as well. The acting is on point. Some of the fight scenes are equally as good as James Bond or Jason Bourne. So that's a 9-part series, Gangs of London. The second thing, which I've just started watching, is called Money Heist.
You took it right out of your mouth.
Did I? Okay, you know, I'm going to leave you to cover it.
No, please, go ahead.
Because I tell you what, I'm very, very, even though I'm an African Caribbean through and through, I'm born here, geezer, yeah? So I don't want to see him dubbing when I'm watching a program, yeah? His lips do not match these words, yeah? I'm not watching it. No, I'm not watching it. This was me, episodes 1 and 2. But by end of episode, it's like, what? No. It's had me grip.
I lost sleep over that program. The amount of people that have said the same thing. We've all had the same journey. I've put it on. I've seen that it's not in sync, and I've turned it off. I think I started about 2 months ago, and I thought, sorry, I can't watch anything that's not synced properly. That's just annoying. I came back to it somehow, and I'm telling you, I lost sleep. I didn't eat. You know, I was even dreaming about the thing. You know, waking up out of my sleep into the action. It's so good, and I had that season 5. Is it season 5? It's going to be on. Yeah, season 5 hasn't been greenlit yet, so that means they haven't started filming it yet. Obviously, we're in a pandemic now, so I'm a bit gutted because I don't even know when season 5 would come. But honestly, if you can watch seasons 1 to 4, I agree with Mr. C. You're going to have an absolutely great time. I finished it yesterday, and I couldn't watch anything else afterwards. Even you know, you need a little break. Something so good. But anyway, please, give us a book.
Right, a book. Now, I'll say that this book is like a Bible for me. It's called Thick Face, Black Heart. It's written by a wonderful woman called Chining Chu, and it's the Asian way of thinking and doing business and living life. And because there's certain sayings and phrases what we have, which especially when you're born of an African Caribbean descent, but you're placed in Westernized society, there's certain words and phrases which are used against us as negative. So like with Muhammad Ali, for example, they all said that he was arrogant. He was too braggadocious. But was he not the best or the greatest of all time?
Yes.
So sometimes it's, again, we find that in school that, you know, with our children, that there's certain little words and phrases what's said to our children, which in a way makes them feel that they're not good. So that what they do, they start dumbing down themselves. So this book kind of, in a way, it kind of shows how you need balance in life. So it talks about things like detachment, which again, I found for a period of my life that I started detaching myself from people within my family, within my friends group. And then people were saying that, oh, see, you're quite cold. They use like negative words, but I was thinking, oh, yeah, I've got to be cold with you because right about now, I don't like your energy. But they was trying to make you feel guilty for being detached or being cold. So what it kind of lets you understand is that detachment is something that we all need to have. There's times where you need to be detached from people. There's times where you might need to cut a person. So it talks about, again, like, you know, surgeons, for example, that a surgeon cannot cut you in order to make you feel better. And while a surgeon's cutting you, it cannot have no concern or thought at all for how you're feeling through this incision. But they need to cut you in order to get the cancer or whatever it is, the tumor out, and be focused on that. So sometimes you need to cut people off, or to cut people in for you to move forward. So it's a very, very good book, where it shows, again, so many examples of where things go bad in your life, that they're there for you to learn something. And as long as you learn that and apply it in the future, then, you know, you'll find that the responsibility lies with you and how you move forward in life. So Thick Face Black Heart is my Bible. So basically what it says is that the thick face is like how Chinese people, what you think about me is none of my business. It's none of my concern. What you think about me does not alter my face at all. Black heart is the ability to, again, to sometimes, if you have to detach, or you have to cut through a moment in time or through people in time in order to get to your end goal. It's not about being ruthless, but it's about being able to detach from how that person feels, so that you can get to the end goal. Brilliant book. Absolutely brilliant.
So much, Mr. C. I think that sounds very edifying. It's a very positive note to end on. I also just want to end on the fact that May 14th saw Mary Seacole. It was May 14th. It was 1881, that she died in her London home. Mary Seacole achieved a lot in her lifetime. She was truly remarkable. She broke social rules and prejudices, I can't say the word, to travel the world, run businesses, and help those in need. If we end on that, I just think it's such a great woman to take in. Let's think about her, everything that she's done. Let's use that to push us forward within the next week. And hopefully we'll see you all back here again. Thank you, Mr. C. Thank you, Tony. We've run out of time. But let's remember Mary Seacole in this time and move together in unity, and remembering all those people who fought for us to be able to do this. Let's make it and put it to good use. Thank you for watching What a Week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.